Welcome to the Learning Assistant app YouTube channel. Have you ever felt like your brain is a leaky bucket? You pour in hours of study, pages of reading, and dozens of tutorial videos, only to find that a few days later, the information has simply evaporated. It's a frustrating cycle that makes many people believe they aren't smart enough or don't have a good memory. But what if the problem isn't your brain? What if the problem is the architecture of your approach? Today, we are going to embark on a deep dive into the art and science of mastery. We're going to explore 4 transformative pillars of learning that turn the leaky bucket into a magnetic vault. These pillars are Uttiseyal Inaipu, the bridge, Vilayattu, gamification, Samugam, socialization, and Uruvakam, creation. Throughout this video, we'll use beautiful animations to visualize how these concepts actually rewire your neural pathways. By the end of this deep dive, you won't just have a list of tips, you will have a fundamental understanding of how to learn anything effectively. Let's begin. Part 1. Uttiseyal Inaipu, the bridge. Look at the animation on your screen. You see a vast, dark landscape filled with isolated islands of light. Each of those islands represents something you already know deeply. Perhaps your love for cricket, your passion for cooking, or your knowledge of a favorite movie franchise. Now, notice a tiny, dim spark trying to find a place to land. That spark is a new topic you're trying to learn. Let's say, the principles of economics. If that spark lands in the dark, empty space between the islands, it eventually fades away. This is what happens when you try to learn something in a vacuum. But watch what happens when we build a bridge. The concept of the bridge involves connecting a new abstract topic to a pre-existing hobby or interest. In cognitive science, we call this associative learning. Your brain doesn't store information in a linear filing cabinet, it stores it in a web. The more anchors a new piece of information has to your old information, the harder it is to lose. Let's take an example. Suppose you are struggling to understand supply and demand in economics. Instead of reading the textbook definition over and over, let's bridge it to something you love, like playing a battle royale video game. Imagine a rare, powerful weapon in the game. When only one of these weapons drops on the map, low supply, but every player wants it, high demand. The cost to get it, in terms of risk and effort, skyrockets. Suddenly, that weapon starts dropping in every house, high supply, but players find a better alternative, low demand, the value of that weapon crashes. Suddenly, economics isn't a dry chapter in a book, it's a mechanic in a world you already understand. Notice on the screen how the economics spark has now moved onto the video game island. It is now tethered, it is safe. When you think of the game, you will automatically reinforce your understanding of the economic principle. This is the power of the bridge. Whenever you start a new topic, ask yourself, how is this like my favorite hobby? Part 2. Vilayattu, the gamification of focus. Now let's talk about the biggest enemy of learning, the wall of procrastination. We've all been there. You look at a 200-page textbook and your brain immediately shuts down. It feels like trying to climb a mountain in one leap. This is where the second pillar comes in, Vilayattu or gamification. But we're not just talking about playing games, we're talking about the psychology of the 10-minute sprint. Look at the timer on the screen. It's set for 10 minutes. Watch as the red bar slowly shrinks. Why 10 minutes? Because 10 minutes is psychologically safe. Your brain's amygdala, the part responsible for the fight or flight response, often gets triggered by large, daunting tasks. It sees a massive project and screams, "Run away!" But when you tell your brain, "We're only doing this for 10 minutes," the amygdala stays calm. This is an application of Parkinson's law, which states that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. By restricting the time to a tiny 10-minute window, you force your brain into a state of high-intensity focus. Let's watch this in action with an animation of a brain's focus beam. When you have 2 hours to study, the beam is wide, diffused, and weak. But when that 10-minute timer starts, the beam narrows into a laser. Within this window, you challenge yourself. How much can I truly grasp before the buzzer goes off? This turns learning into a speed run. You aren't just reading, you are competing against the clock. This creates a small spike in dopamine, the reward chemical, when you finish. That dopamine makes you want to do it again. Instead of one exhausting 2-hour session, you have several high-octane 10-minute levels. This is how you gamify the process of acquisition. Part 3. Samugam, the socialization of knowledge. The third pillar is often the most neglected, samugam or socialization. Look at the animation of these interconnected nodes. Each node is a person. Notice how information flows between them. When you learn in isolation, you are limited by your own perspective and your own blind spots. You might misunderstand a concept and never realize it because there's no one to point it out. Socializing your learning isn't just about group study, which can often lead to distractions. It's about joining forums, Discord servers, or specialized groups where the topic is discussed. Why does this work so deeply? It's because of something called the protégé effect. Studies show that when you prepare to explain a concept to someone else, your brain organizes the information more logically. Look at the animation. When the student begins to speak to the group, the jumbled thoughts in their head begin to align into straight, clear lines. By participating in a community, you are forced to articulate your thoughts. When you post a question in a forum or try to answer someone else's question, you are performing active retrieval. You are pulling information out of your brain rather than just trying to push it in. If you can explain a complex topic like quantum entanglement or Tamil grammar to a group of peers in a way they understand, you have achieved a level of mastery that no amount of silent reading can provide. Community also provides social reinforcement. We are social animals. When we receive a like on a helpful explanation or a thank you for a resource we shared, our brain marks that information as highly important. It's no longer just data, it's part of our social identity. But look what happens when the creation filter is turned on. The data hits the filter and is transformed into something new, a drawing, a summary, a mind map, or a chart. This is the transition from being a consumer to being a creator. Most people spend 90% of their time consuming, reading, watching, listening, but true mastery happens in the 10% of time you spend creating. Let's look at a technique called dual coding. On the screen, you see the word photosynthesis next to a complex paragraph of text. Now watch as we draw a simple, colorful diagram of a leaf, a sun, and some arrows. Your brain has two distinct channels for processing information, one for text and one for visuals. When you create a drawing or a visual note, you are double encoding the information. You are giving your brain two different paths to find that memory later. Write down one aha moment. This act of creation forces your brain to synthesize the raw data into a coherent structure. You are essentially building your own version of the knowledge. Synthesis, the mastery quartet in action. Now let's bring all 4 threads together. Imagine you are learning about artificial intelligence.